A wonderful psalm. Sing to the Lord a new song, for he has done marvelous things. His right hand and his holy arm have worked salvation for him. The Lord has made his salvation known and revealed his righteousness to the nations. He has remembered his love and his faithfulness to Israel. All the ends of the earth have seen the salvation of our God. Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Burst into jubilant song with music. Make music to the Lord with the harp and the sound of singing, with trumpets and the blast of the ram's horn. Shout for joy before the Lord, the King. Let the sea resound and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. Let the rivers clap their hands. Let the mountains sing together for joy. Let them sing before the Lord, for he comes to judge the earth. He will judge the world in righteousness and the peoples with equity. Thus says the Lord. Do you want me to read Matthew straight away? Matthew 19. The gospel reading, and it's coming up on the screens for us all. Starting at verse 16. Just then a man came up to Jesus and asked, "Teacher, what good thing must I do to get eternal life?" "Why do you ask me about what is good?" Jesus replied. "There is only one who is good. If you want to enter life, keep the commandments." "Which ones?" he inquired. Jesus replied, "You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not give false testimony, honor your father and your mother, and love your neighbor as yourself." "All these I have kept," the young man said. "What do I still lack?" Jesus answered, "If you want to be perfect, go sell your possessions and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come, follow me." Now when the young man heard this, he went away sad, because he had great wealth. Then Jesus said to his disciples, "Truly, I tell you, it is hard for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. Again, I tell you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven." When the disciples heard this, they were greatly astonished and asked, "Who then can be saved?" Jesus looked at them and said, "With man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible." Peter answered him, "We have left everything to follow you. What then will there be for us?" And Jesus said to them, "Truly, I tell you, at the renewal of all things, when the Son of Man sits on his glorious throne, you who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And anyone who has left houses or brothers or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or fields for my sake will receive 100 times as much and will inherit eternal life. But many who are first will be last, and many who are last will be first." This is the word of the Lord.
I would like you to all meet the Reverend David Shaw. David, will you come on up and join me? Now, David.
Yes, Ben.
I understand you've come to join us at Trinity.
I have. We have. Penny. Penny has
as
too.
well. Absolutely, of course. I was waiting for you to introduce her. Penny and David, welcome very much to Trinity. You've come to us from Reading, I believe?
That's right.
Is that right?
That's right.
Fantastic. And what were you doing while you were in Reading?
I was doing the sort of ministry stuff in the Basingstoke and Reading circuits.
Fantastic. That's what we like to hear.
Yep.
And so why have you come here?
We've retired, and years ago, the kids, when we talked to the kids, they said, no pressure. We said, what should we do? And they said, come and live near one of us. And we've come to live near Chris and Susie and Ben and Caitlin, which is a joy for us. They can make their own decisions.
It's all right for them, though, because I understand that you're going to be escaping for at least a day a week to go and see some more grandchildren. Is that right?
That's right. Every Tuesday we're down near Southampton looking after our other 2 grandchildren. Fantastic.
So David is somebody else, another minister who has come to join us. Isn't that great? Will you show him and Penny how warm of a welcome you want to give them? A round of applause. Thank you. So I thought today, as we're beginning our journey as a family, rather than me planning a sermon while I was trying to get married, that David and I would just have a conversation about ministry and things like that, and we are going to ask you to join in at points. Perhaps you could put the link up on the screen, Tim. So if you have your smartphone in your pocket, and you are able to access the internet on it, perhaps you would like to go to this link. Tim thought QR codes might be slightly too advanced for all of us. So we've gone for links. Who has a smartphone? Hands up. Quite a few of you. Wonderful. Thank you. I might ask some of you to do some moving about in a bit, because you might need to help those that haven't, or just get some answers off of those that haven't. But if you go to this link, at various points, questions will flash up on the screen, and if you type them in, they will appear on the screen as well. But we'll leave the link up for now while we have the beginning bit of the conversation, Tim, and then we'll go to question number 1. So, our psalm this morning started, "O sing to the Lord a new song, David, for he has done marvellous things." Now, I'm not quite sure how long you were in the ministry. Perhaps you can tell us before you retired, because obviously you're still in the ministry, really. We don't ever let you run away. No. You just get to take it a bit easier. So go on, start by telling us how long were you in active ministry, we call it?
Yeah, I came into circuit ministry in 1986, so about 37 years, yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, I was a science teacher before that, but most of my adult life, I've been a Methodist minister.
Incredible stuff. And I'm guessing that in that time you have seen God do some marvellous things. Could you tell us a little bit about what you might have seen God do?
Oh, yeah, it's very interesting. When I just glanced at these questions beforehand, not giving anything away, it was the immediate things that sprung to mind. Yeah. So in the last appointment, the farewell service, there were 5 young people giving their testimony about what God had done in their life. And that was just awesome.
Wow. Yeah.
Awesome. And then when just as I was about to leave, one of the other churches where I had pastoral charge became the 6th Methodist church in Britain to get the Gold Award for Eco Church.
Wow.
So it's just, but throughout my ministry, it's largely been the excitement and the fun and the discovery of faith of young people who have been a part of that. And, you know, seeing a church family that was representing tens of countries from around the world worshipping together, where each heritage was valued and honoured and brought their contribution. And I was really sorry to miss the gospel choir last week, who I understand were just stunning. So I'm sorry about that.
I'm gutted that I missed them too. I did ask if they'd like to take part this morning, but they said it was a bit too soon and some of them were on holiday. So I do hope that they will reform again so that we can see them.
Yeah, that'd be great.
A good idea. Absolutely. And that idea, they're already bringing that idea of family that we've already talked about today. Everyone from wherever you come from, all corners of the earth, welcome together underneath God's banner. And that's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Absolutely. And mine's fairly similar. So before I became a minister, I worked in youth work within the church. and just loved, seeing young people come and ask those questions, get to grips with those things, and then make their journey. And being a part of those baptism services where people share their testimony are just fantastic.
There's a reality about it, isn't there?
Yeah.
What came across last time I was at Wesley was their extraordinary honesty, not least about mental health. And I think that's about family. When you said this is a place where we can do that, that'd be great.
Absolutely. And I've already started seeing here things that are really good. So in my leaving service in Barnsley, when I left just a month and a half ago in Barnsley, I had a young girl of 8 years old stand up, and we were talking about, I was encouraging the Barnsley circuit to keep dreaming about what they wanted to be. They've seen a lot of change over the last few years within their circuit and churches. So keep dreaming, don't lose sight of what God is leading you into. Keep going. And she shared a bit of her dream for a church, being more inclusive, particularly for her, for people who are slightly neurodiverse, because she is somebody who suffers with autism, although she hasn't got a formal diagnosis yet, and talked about how sometimes church can be quite loud, or needing to fidget, or just needing to go and hide sometimes. So just as I came in this morning, I took a picture of the earmuffs that you've got out there, and the fidget toys, and I'm going to send that to her mum later to show her, and say, look, some churches are doing this really well, maybe you can set this up in your church. So we're doing some good stuff here already, and it's fantastic. God has done some truly wonderful things. I just want to tell a little story as well, David.
Go for it.
About when I was a youth and community worker. A little bit about holy mischief, really, where I was feeling a little bit mischievous, as I often do. I'd taken my youth group from a church I just started working with to Soul Survivor for the first time, a Christian festival. A little bit unwise, perhaps, to be talking about them at the moment, but we're doing it anyway. And we were camped fairly close to groups from 2 other churches in our town. And my youth group hadn't really met any of the youth groups from either of the other churches, but we were camped right next door to them. And I noticed that one of them, the ones right next door to us, had brought some things to make little gardens outside of their tents with, particularly some garden gnomes. So I said to my lot, if one of you brings me a garden gnome without being seen before the end of today, I'll give you some chocolate. Lo and behold, by the end of the day, I had a garden gnome, and I gave them some chocolate. We then wrote a little note that said, if you want to see your gnome again, take a cup of tea to Becky, who was one of the leaders I knew in the 3rd youth group. And take a cup of tea to Becky and a slice of cake, and we'll work it out. And we hung it on their washing line, and we took a picture of the gnome next to a daily newspaper so they had the date as well to make it really authentic. And to be honest, what ensued got out of hand pretty quickly. Let's just say a pseudo police force was set up. A court hearing happened, but by the end of the week, all 3 youth groups knew each other, were integrated, were praying with and for one another, and were having fun, which is the crucial thing, isn't it? So yes, there was a little bit of mischief, borrowing a gnome, stealing a gnome, I don't know where the line is. They got it back. They got it back. But the good that came out of that, and that some of those links still exist today. And just knowing that God works through the fun times that we have is really good. So I think it's probably time we ask these folks a question, don't you think? So we would just want to ask you now, the question's going to appear on the screen. If you're on that link, you should be able to now answer this question. What wonderful things has God shown you? And if you can type an answer in, send it up, and it'll appear on the screen. If you wanted a QR code, it's there. Nature, wonderful. And if you've typed your answer in, and you are sat near some people who don't have a smartphone, you might want to just ask them if they've got an answer, because you can type more than one. Love and peace. I can see there's lots of people typing. Oh, wow.
It's not letting very much be typed. I've only got half my sentence.
Oh, well. You'll have to find a way to summarize it and tell us the full sentence over a cup of tea. Friendship, love and peace, supportive church family, truth, families getting big, his love, sunsets, that he loves me, joy. Wonderful stuff. Oh, what's that one? The Planet Earth says lots of interesting stuff in the Millionaire's Shortbread.
Yes.
Whoever that is, I want to give you a high five later.
That's two of us.
That's two of us. Excellent. Because that is actually something else that I have seen, I am sure you will have too, is just how good food is at bringing people together and allowing people to share their faith journeys and what God is doing in their lives. It's just fantastic, which is why we're going to share a meal together in a little bit. So what else have we got there? I'm not going to keep reading them all, but we'll leave that going for a little bit, because I'm going to move on to my next question then. Because at the end of our reading from Matthew, Jesus is quite honest that people in following Jesus are going to be asked to leave families. In fact, yesterday at Messy Church, we heard about how some brothers did leave their father behind. It's quite difficult. We all are sometimes asked to leave things behind. Jesus said, "And everyone who has left houses or brothers or sisters or fathers, mother or children, fields for my name's sake, will receive 100-fold and will inherit eternal life." But that doesn't necessarily make this bit any easier in the here and now. It's pretty demanding following Jesus, and you've been doing it for 37 years in active ministry, and then a bit before that as a disciple, I'm sure. So, are there things you've had to walk away from or let go that have been hard for you?
I think, as I was just briefly reflecting on the question, I think my family have had to actually give up more than I have, and this is an opportunity for me to say thank you, because I think it does feed back to the other interpretation of family, church as family. The thing I have left behind each time we have moved is a family that I have grown to know and love and share the most important things in life: funerals, baptisms, life-threatening illnesses, just the privilege of sharing life with people, and you leave. And you'll have done that leaving Barnsley. You know, we've had a farewell service here to Billy last week, or whenever it was. You'll have had a farewell service, and you've already mentioned that. So actually it's a big thing to leave behind, and I think a lot of people, when they retire, often retire where they live, where everything is known. So this is where you folks come in. We've got Chris and Susie and Ben and Caitlin, but the rest of East Grinstead and Trinity we don't know. And I don't have that role in the same way anymore. And we've got to discover what life is like. So that's it. Doesn't feel like a loss, because of the other bit of what you said. Actually, you give them back.
Yeah.
So the leaving of those congregations that we desperately love. My prayer was always, God, give me a love for these people, and God always has.
Yeah. So, and that's a bit about what David was saying at my welcome service on Friday.
Yeah.
Was, actually, this isn't my ground, this isn't your ground, this is God's ground, on which we all work. This is holy ground that we all walk on together and share together. And so there is always a slight awkwardness and fear of one messing up and not getting it right. But also we have to embrace that and be willing to try, otherwise we miss out on those blessings that come from moving through that awkwardness and those difficulties together. Yeah, that's really good, that. I like that. And certainly, particularly this time I've moving with, when I moved to Barnsley, I moved to do on my own. So the decision that I made to become a minister didn't really affect anyone else other than me. Perhaps my parents, who were a bit like, oh, you're a bit far away. But they were used to it. I'd never lived on the doorstep anyway. Whereas this time, what you said about family, having to give things up, is a lot more real. A lot more real. And Charlotte's a lot further away from her family and things like that. So I do hope that we will continue to find family, as you said, and a love for people here and from you. But following Jesus can be difficult, even when we stay in one place, because sometimes Jesus can ask us to give money to things or not partake in particular activities that seem like good things to do. So our next question for you will appear on the screen, and this one's quite simple. It's just multiple choice. Have you had to leave things behind in order to follow Jesus? And there are some suggestions up there. If you tick a vote, the bars will move up. If you are able to ask people around you as well, that would be great, just so that they get involved too. Oh, lots of us have had to leave behind dreams and friends and family. Yeah. Because sometimes the things we want to do are not what we end up doing. Interesting stuff.
It's interesting.
It is. Me and David are both staring at this thinking, what does this mean right now? And so, yeah, fascinating. Thank you very much to all those of you that are answering. Right. Ultimately, though, David, any trials now are more than made up for in the promises that God makes us.
Yeah.
The things that he say will happen. Make a joyful noise to the Lord, all the earth. Break forth into joyous song and sing praises. Sing praises to the Lord with the lyre and with the sound of melody, with the trumpets and the sound of a horn. Make joyful noise before the King, the Lord. That's what the psalmist encourages people to do when we notice that God is doing good things. And what I learned from question number 1 is God has revealed lots of good things to the people in this room, as well as to you and I. What is your favourite way to celebrate, or what's the favourite way that you have celebrated the goodness of God?
We've already mentioned food and fun.
Yep.
In terms of worship, I've been blessed by hearing, and this group included, some great worship groups. So, blessed be the name of the Lord is the one that means a lot to me. And over the last 6 months, the first song that we sang, as somebody with a science background and a love of the environment, it's great to see people say stars and sunsets and that first thing. That first song that resonates with our understanding of creation. They're great songs.
They are.
So, and I don't dance.
And you don't dance? No. Somebody else said that to me recently.
Oh, no.
And they did. But yes, some people like dancing, some people don't.
Yeah,
That's fine.
Yeah.
I won't repeat the sermon about the person who also said they wouldn't dance today. We might save it for another time.
Okay.
But yeah, fantastic. Food is a big one, isn't it? And fun. So I haven't got a poll for this particular question.
Okay.
But I'm going to ask them and then I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
So you're just going to have to shout out at me, folks. What does fun look like to you? People. Laughter. Happiness. Games. Thank you, whoever said that. Yes, sir. Mathematics. God makes all sorts. Music. Music. There are 2 types of people in this world, aren't there? Those that understand binary and those that don't. That's my one mathematics joke. Done. Dusted. Anyone else? What else looks like fun? What does fun look like? Arts and crafts. Adventure. Okay. Good stuff. Music. Holidays. So, swimming, did somebody say? Great stuff. Good, good. So, David, what does fun look like to you?
All the above. Actually, there's something about losing yourself, actually,
Yeah.
but you're not conscious of that. That's sort of, you get that afterwards, yeah.
That bit where you're doing something and you just don't have to think about it and you're not worrying about who you are, what you're saying, what you're doing. It's all just flowing naturally. That's great, isn't it? When you get into that mode, that's what would be.
Happened for me yesterday at Messy Church, because I was just about over there with the swimming pool bit, with all these preschoolers, and when I realised actually what we were trying to do possibly wouldn't work with 2s and 3s, and we just enjoyed getting wet together.
Getting wet. Water fight. Does anyone here enjoy a water fight? Right, okay, great, good to know. I saw a few hands, it's noted. Okay, so I have got one final poll for those of you that are able to take part on your smartphones. What is your favourite celebratory song or hymn to have in church? As David said, he had lots of musical things. Lots of people said music. So what is your favourite song or hymn that helps you celebrate the goodness of God? And please do ask the people next to you if you can on this one, because it's going to help me in choosing them for the next few weeks.
Oh yeah, I love that. Really?
Those of you that don't have a phone, are you seeing some good ones up there that you like too? Yeah? Good stuff. Yeah? I have to say the first one, See What a Morning, is one I burst into song at home quite frequently with. God's Great Dance Floor. Oh, I could be mischievous, but it would be mean after he's done me a favour. Oceans, good choice. Come Now's the Time to Worship. Amazing Grace I saw earlier. Lighthouse, Oh Happy Day. Great is Thy Faithfulness. Well, that person's in for a treat because that's the next one. Keep those coming in, folks, please do. Because I hope somewhere in the conversation and the sharing together today, you have found the message that God has wanted for you today. Because I'm not preaching a sermon. We're just sharing together the goodness of God, what it is to be a family. And so we are going to give thanks together in just a moment. If the band could stop typing and start coming forward. Because we are going to give thanks together. Thank you very much, David, as you run away. We are going to give thanks to God for his faithfulness and the joy that he gives us all through singing, Great is Thy Faithfulness. And as we do so, as an expression of our thanks and gratitude, we're going to take up the offering for the work of God.